On May 12, 2024, Vladimir Putin conducted the biggest shake-up in the political system of Russia. The Minister of Defense of 12 years and Putin's close friend Sergei Shoigu was fired, transferred to a new job, as they said. The vacant position with the largest concentration of power in Russia has been given to a nobody. A nobody from the point of view of the insiders of Russia's political system called the vertical of power. Andrei Belousov, first deputy prime minister in the last 4 years and an assistant to Russian President Vladimir Putin for 7 years prior to that, became the Minister of Defense. An economic scientist who was educated in the USSR and worked in the Soviet economy conducting economic forecasting, inflation analysis, and price setting. He started working in the Soviet economic system when Leonid Brezhnev was still the Secretary General of the Communist Party. He is as far from anything military as Mars is far from Uranus. Yet, Andrei Belousov is the new Minister of Defense of Russia, while there's the active war is happening. Doesn't make any sense, right? Well, it does. Makes perfect sense of Putin's logic. And this will affect both Russia and Ukraine a huge deal. In order to understand these political games happening now, you've got to know what you're dealing with. Why is Russian political system called the vertical of power? Because it's all about power, real power. The more power you have, the higher you are in the ranks of Russian strongmen. And what is the power? How does it show itself in Russia? I define 3 main characteristics of real power in Russia. Number 1, personnel authority. Number 2, money flows. The fancy definition is financial management, but it's really money flows, денежные потоки. And number 3, lawmaking. A bit more details about each characteristic. Personnel authority is when an official has power to hire and fire people and create and liquidate job positions inside Russian political system. Joseph Stalin used the personnel authority wisely to rise up to absolute power some 100 years ago. Money flow is a very simple concept. It's how much money from the federal budget one has control of. The more money one can control and steal, the more powerful she or he is. An example for you. The Minister of Construction is in charge of many things, including subsidizing large construction companies with federal money, giving out grants to large contractors to help them out, so to speak. The minister decides who to approve federal grants to and who to deny. That's called the money flow. And the more money decisions one can make, the more money flows into his pockets, and the more powerful he is. And then there's lawmaking. The more laws or norms or standards or executive orders one can make that other people must obey, the more powerful he or she is. And Russian Ministry of Defense is the concentration of power. Well, see for yourself. Personnel authority is unlimited. Around 1.5 million servicemen and unlimited power over them. Money flows in the Ministry of Defense? Don't even get me started. Unlimited money. Moreover, most of spendings of the military of defense have been made secret. The black box budgets. It's the money that no one is going to ask you about how they were spent. No one in Russia has the authority to do that. Would you like an example? The air defense system of Russia. It has been built and maintained since 1991, the collapse of the USSR. Dozens of trillions of taxpayers' rubles have been spent. In reality, this air defense system exists only on paper. Ukrainian drones and missile attacks prove that. Where has all the money gone to? Obviously stolen and gone into the pockets of those generals and colonels who have been controlling the money flows, who over the years were making the money decisions. Again, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. And the lawmaking in the Ministry of Defense? Unlimited opportunities again. 1.5 million people listen to direct orders. Moreover, those orders must be obeyed. In other government agencies, orders can be disobeyed. The worst thing can happen to you is you get fired, but not in the army. Every serviceman takes the military oath. Disobeying orders results in prison time or death. At this point, I want you to put the dots together and find out why the Minister of Defense is the most powerful man in Russia. That's right. The Minister of Defense is the man giving direct orders to 1.5 million servicemen, trained and armed to kill. They all, without exceptions, have taken the oath to follow the orders of their superiors no matter what. They can't think, they can't analyze, they can't discuss orders. They must obey them. And it's not just the Russian army. That's how armies work in general all over the world. And guess who is the highest ranking official in the Russian army? The Minister of Defense. Also, guess what is number one reason for coup d'etats in the history of humankind? Generals killing kings or presidents and taking their power. And that's what Vladimir Putin is very afraid of. That is why he has never appointed Minister of Defense. A. Charismatic. B. Strong leader. C. Professional and successful military person. Putin's Russia so far has seen 4 ministers of defense. 3 previous ones were Sergei Ivanov, Anatoly Serdyukov, and Sergei Shoigu. None of them were professional servicemen. They were civilians. Among other common things they shared, 2 big ones stood out. All were super loyal to Vladimir Putin, and they were hated by the professional military men. By all. From soldiers to generals, for one simple reason. They were people who weren't of their own. They were given the right to order them, the servicemen. Those ministers had nothing to do with the military until the moment they were appointed to be the ministers of defense. Anatoly Serdyukov, for example, was a marketing director, then a general director of a furniture store. That's right, furniture. He was selling furniture. Not a big store either. After he married the daughter of one of Putin's friends, his career took an unexpected turn, and a few years later, the guy found himself the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation. No special education, no military career, no experience, nothing. Imagine how hated he was in the armed forces. So hated that Serdyukov was actually arrested and put on trial for corruption and taking bribes. Guess what happened to the former Minister of Defense of Russian Federation right after Russia invaded Ukraine? Him and his girlfriend just packed up and left Russia. Regular airport, no business lounge, no private jet, economy class among people. They walked out just like that. I think that now you are watching this and asking yourself, why, oh why, I wasn't following Russian politics before. It's amusing. It was funnier than watching Seinfeld. Well, actually, until it became tragic in February of 2022. But if you want to stay on top of the game, don't forget that every single day I carefully select 9 news from Russia that I find important and make them available to Inside Russia patrons. So if you want to receive daily updates of 9 important news, like accidents, new laws, arrests, economic news, prices, new ministers perhaps, you name it. Everything important, then become the channel's patron at patreon.com, and I'll leave a link down below in the description, right there. Back to the new Minister of Defense. Andrei Belousov is no different than the other 3 guys. Probably even worse. He hasn't even served in the army. He went to a university instead. Graduated from the USSR best school, the Moscow State University, with a degree in economics. He started to work in the Soviet economic system in 1981. He's an economist turned bureaucrat. Since the 90s, he has held different government positions. He was a Minister of Economic Development for a brief period of time, some 12 years ago. And in 2020, he became the Deputy Prime Minister overseeing financial and economic policies of the state. So you understand, he wasn't the minister. He did not make policies. He didn't implement them. He didn't have any employees he could hire or fire. No money flows were going through him. He was simply watching over things that others were doing. That is called a nobody in the vertical of power in Russia. The only thing Belousov remembered by is in 2023, he was running around collecting the windfall tax from large corporations trying to fill the emptying federal budget with more money. He was hated for that by all the oligarchs and even Putin's friends, as he collected $3 billion extra taxes from them, their own money, and he was telling them they had to volunteer. If not, then they would regret. In other countries, it's called blackmail. In Russia, it's called large corporations voluntarily paying windfall tax. Nice. Some said that Belousov did that as his personal present to Vladimir Putin. Well, the present paid off. Belousov now is an unexpected new Minister of Defense of Russia. Belousov's nomination came as a surprise to everybody, myself included. Le Figaro from France, the Reuters and the Guardian from the UK, the New York Times from the USA, the Berliner Zeitung from Germany, the Rzecz Pospolita from Poland, Xinhua from China, the Perfil from Argentina, even the Daily Sabah from Turkey came out with their respective commentaries, and all were surprised. Now let's talk more about Belousov. But before I jump there, I'd like to thank everyone for supporting the channel by buying me coffees at buymeacoffee.com. When you buy me a coffee or a tea, I like English tea, it's proof that you find my work valuable. And to me, it is huge feedback and inspiration. So again, thank you very much. So why Belousov among other candidates? The most common explanation for Andrei Belousov as the new Minister of Defense is that now it's necessary to integrate the economy of the war into the economy of the country. And Belousov has shown his effectiveness of pressuring the businesses and getting results, getting things done. He will do that better than others. Belousov's appointment shows everybody that Russia is heading towards war economy, that direction. To me, that explanation is bogus. Andrei Belousov was indeed very effective as an economic hawk. He came in and blackmailed businesses, threatened them. Most likely, he had a carte blanche from Vladimir Putin for punishing those who wouldn't cooperate and comply. He was not needed to be made the Minister of Defense to continue doing what he had been doing very well. He was in a perfect position for that as the Deputy Prime Minister. Andrei Belousov, the accountant of Gosplan, the Soviet economy scientist, Putin's economic hawk, becoming the Minister of Defense in the height of war, that Russia is not winning, by the way, is not about Andrei Belousov becoming the armed forces leader. Just watch this. Belousov just spoke in front of the upper chamber of the parliament, presenting his vision for the role of the Minister of Defense. He was selling himself to the senators.
Это касается особенно медицинского обслуживания. Я считаю, абсолютно непорядок, когда участников СВО, которые приезжают в отпуск, гоняют из гражданских медицинских учреждений, отправляют в госпитали, которые часто просто переполнены. Этот вопрос надо решать. Это касается и избыточной бюрократии и бумажной волокиты, связанные с подтверждением льгот в военнослужащих. По-хорошему это все должно решаться в рамках системы межведомственного электронного взаимодействия с МЭО, без документарного. Возможности технологические сейчас уже для этого есть, просто здесь надо все вещи отработать. Это касается еще таких, например, вопросов, когда у участников СВО фактически на иждивении находятся несовершеннолетние не только дети, но и братья и сестры, например. И они фактически потом оказываются вне системы льгот, которые предоставляют регионы. Это тоже неправильно, это тоже вопрос надо решать. И таких вопросов достаточно много, поэтому есть над чем работать.
To solve the problems of medical care for the military, who come on vacations and go to civilian hospitals where they aren't treated well, to arrange payments for the provision of military housing, to solve the problem of excessive bureaucracy and paperwork associated with confirmation of military benefits? Is that really the new Minister of Defense speaking? By the way, let me know what you think of this speech. Let me know in the comments below. Is it just me thinking those were not the words of the Minister of Defense? Or, I'm not the only one thinking so. I think by now you understand that it's not about Belousov becoming the minister. It's about firing Sergei Shoigu and isolating him from the military forces. Isolating the clan he represents from the power. It's about keeping him on the leash by arresting his closest friend and his wallet, Timur Ivanov, and other people were also arrested from the clan. Belousov will pressure the military-industrial complex into producing a bit more for a bit less. Yes, he will do that. But there won't be a breakthrough as Russian military-industrial complex is performing in the peak of its capacity already. The question that remains open is who will perform the military part? If the new Minister of Defense is as far from the military as Mars is from Uranus. Gerasimov? Where is Gerasimov? Surovikin perhaps? No way Putin would allow that. Defeats the purpose of firing Shoigu. Putin will do that himself. We're seeing the second Joseph Stalin being born. During World War II, Stalin became the Secretary of State Defense Committee, and he took a large part of making military decisions. He was paranoid about his security, he was paranoid of generals becoming too strong, and this is what Vladimir Putin is doing right now. He certainly does not need competition from any smart, charismatic, knowledgeable, experienced general, loved and respected by many in the military. And this is exactly why Andrei Belousov is the new Minister of Defense. A nobody before and a nobody now, only much more known now. His main value is he is controllable and he's loyal and he knows his place. And that is certainly very good news for Ukraine. One last question. Can Andrei Belousov be the next person who will become Russia's next president? Do you understand what I'm getting at? It depends on the outcome of the war of Russian political clans. Please join me in analyzing in depth and discussing it tonight in the live stream. The link is right here. I'll see you there soon.